Did the Jews have good relations with their neighbors, the Samaritans? No, the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. What is the oldest continually used man-made artifact on the face of the earth? Jacob's well, mentioned in the story of the woman at the well. The Bible is the best gift God has ever given to man. All the good from the Savior of the world is communicated through this book. Abraham Lincoln.
Time is coming, in fact it's already here. It's no longer a matter of Samaria or Jerusalem. For they that worship God must worship him in spirit and in truth. And I'm sure the time is long since due for us to understand it's not whether a person is a Presbyterian or a Methodist or a Catholic or some other denomination, Assemblies of God, Nazarene, whatnot. It's not a matter of whether you worship him in this church or that church, but that you worship him in spirit and worship him totally, genuinely. No sham, no pretense, no front, no cultural facade, but in reality. Now, worshiping in the Bible involves not only adoration, it involves subservience, so that we obey that which we worship. The woman says in verse 25, what does she tell him she knows?
The woman said to him, I know that the Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. When he comes, he will show us all things.
It's amazing how much knowledge this sinful world has. People say, well, I didn't know. I don't know enough to be judged. I'm sorry, that's not true. This Roman, notorious for her immorality, she knows the truth. Messiah's coming. Our problem is not ignorance. Our problem is not doing what we know. And she knows the Messiah's coming. She knows what he'll do when he comes. He will show us all things. And Jesus, talking about condescension, not only has God become man, and man become, as we find later, to the cross, but he condescends to this woman in Samaria to say, I am the Christ. He hasn't said that to the Jewish leaders. He hasn't even said that yet very clearly to his disciples. They've said it, but he hasn't claimed it. But he claims it for the first time, as far as we can tell, in his little words, in his mouth, to someone else. He says it to this poor Samaritan woman. The woman goes away, and while she's gone, the disciples come. And they saw that he was talking to a woman as they were approaching. Nobody said, why do you talk to a woman? You lower yourself to talk to a woman. This is long before the days of women's lib, of course. And why are you talking with her? The woman during this conversation leaves, and Jesus said, I've had food that you didn't know about. Could somebody bring you something to eat? We find out that Jesus' food is to do the will of God. He said, my will, verse 34, read it for us.
Jesus said to them, my food is to do the will of him who sent me, and to accomplish his work.
Don't you say there's still 4 months left until the time for the wheat to be ripe for harvest? He said, look up the hill. Here come the Samaritans. The harvest is ripe now. Pray the Lord of the harvest that he will thrust out, not invite out, thrust out laborers into his harvest. But thrust them out into the harvest to sweat, perspire, have wheat beards down your neck. I know, I've been there, see, in the wheat fields as well as the other kind of harvest. To thrust out laborers into his harvest. They laid the foundation here for revival in Sychar. Jesus yielded to their pleadings and stayed 2 days. We find later that when Philip came back, after the death of Jesus, he found it's a very fertile field. I think the seed was sown back here with this woman. Some folks say, well, now, I've only been a Christian a short time. I don't feel capable of witnessing. This woman did not recognize the Christ for an hour until she was witnessing. She began witnessing the day she found Jesus. And she led a city to the Lord the first day she was saved. Shall we use the slang phrase the kids have and say, get with it? How long have you been saved? How many cities have you led to the Lord? Well, I don't embarrass anybody. We'll drop that subject. Let's read in John 4, verse 43 through verse 45.
After the 2 days he departed to Galilee, for Jesus himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his own country. So when he came to Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him, having seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the feast, for they too had gone to the feast.
It's an interesting thing. When a great man comes back home, what everybody does is they try to cut him down to size. Oh, I remember when he was a kid, you know. He used to deliver my papers. He brought our milk to us. I've known him since he was a little shaver. He wasn't so much in school. I recall my assist made higher grades than he made. We cut him down to size. The prophet, he's honored by everybody except those who knew him, because, you see, they remembered the externals, the unimportant details, the shell. We have the treasure always in earthen vessels. There's a remarkable statement that our artists have not yet learned. Back in Isaiah, it says, and when we see him, there is no comeliness that we should desire him. And there have been whole sermons preached. And of course, all of our pictures, most of them at least, have tried to picture a beautiful Jesus in terms of whatever the nationality of the man was. And those very much favored Salzman's heads of Christ show us a gorgeous Scandinavian, which Jesus was not in any sense of the word. He is not golden-haired. He is not fair-skinned. He is not blue-eyed. He's a Jew. He's an Easterner. He's an Oriental. And the Bible warned us ahead of time that the beauty is not external. The beauty is internal. There's no beauty when we see him externally that would draw us. It's the man that draws us. It's the power of his personality. And this is what we ought to remember. It's a little hard to do. We naturally want to honor him by our paintings. Maybe we shouldn't be doing paintings. Maybe they mislead us. Maybe the Old Testament was right. We should not make any likeness of anything that pertains to God. Let's turn now to Luke 4, verse 14, 15.
And a report concerning him went out through all the surrounding